The Richard Roeper Show is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. The digital landscape is changing rapidly, and to compete in today's online business environment, you need that experienced partner. Since 1995, AmericanEagle.com has partnered with companies of all sizes, offering web design, web development, e-commerce, mobile apps, and digital marketing to drive your overall business's success, because they believe that today's online world is your online opportunity. Visit AmericanEagle.com to get started today. That's AmericanEagle.com. All right, here we go. We're going to start by talking about the Emmy nominations. They came out earlier this week. We're not going to get into the whole snubs and surprises thing. You can read that in a million places online. I just want to go over some of the categories. And, you know, we get into these debates all the time. Is this the golden age of television? Does television suck now? I don't know how you could possibly say that all of television sucks, but some people like to say that. I think we continue on in a really great place when it comes to TV series. When you look at, like, okay, for example, best drama series: Andor, The Diplomat, The Last of Us, Paradise, The Pitt, Severance, Slow Horses, and The White Lotus. I mean, that's a loaded category. Comedy series: Abbott Elementary. It's elementary, my dear Abbott. The Bear, Hacks, Nobody Wants This, which I got a big kick out of. That was a Netflix show. Only Murders in the Building continues to be excellent. Shrinking, great. The Studio, with incredible premiere season that I think set a record for a first season of a show, a comedy, getting most Emmy nominations. And What We Do in the Shadows. You know, we've talked about The Bear, of course. Just a reminder, the Emmys kind of lag behind. So even though we just got season 4 of The Bear, and all the episodes of season 4 are available to stream right now, this is for season 3, which was not the favorite of a lot of people. I still thought it was really good, but for some folks, it was the weakest or the least strong, if you will, of the 3. So this is for season 3 of The Bear. And whether or not The Bear is a comedy, that argument has been settled, because that's it's primarily a drama, but they submitted in the comedy category, which is brilliant, actually, by the FX, Hulu, et cetera, folks, because even though the comedy series category is very strong, if you have The Bear up against Andor and The Last of Us and The Pitt and Severance, Slow Horses, et cetera, I think it's a tougher road to hoe, as they say. Then you get the limited anthology series, Adolescence, which was a huge buzz hit and globally popular, a tough watch, but compelling television. Black Mirror, Dying for Sex, which was terrific. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, Dying for Sex was great. Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, and The Penguin. Going down. I don't care about reality competition, quite frankly. God bless folks who watch those. I don't really watch much of that. Best talk series: The Daily Show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Then you have the scripted variety series. And I like this because now they used to kind of all be under the same umbrella, right? So scripted variety series, it's between Last Week Tonight with John Oliver and Saturday Night Live. Acting again. You know, you look at these performances, and especially for actors, you know, the movies, we get the blockbusters, we get some great indies, we get some surprise hits, but they're still, and have been for a long time, the movies are about the younger audiences and younger stars in most cases. And television has become, in the last 25 years, really, it's nothing new now, but television used to be like, oh, the movie star is no longer a huge movie star, let's give him a TV show. So Lucille Ball would get shows. Well, she was a big TV star as well, all the way back to the 50s. Not the greatest example, but Henry Fonda, for example. And Jimmy Stewart, all these great actors late in their careers would get a lot of times kind of vanilla TV projects to do because they were no longer in demand as movie stars. But nowadays, the television that's available, for example, Kathy Bates, I believe, became the oldest actress nominated for an Emmy for Matlock. But a lot of actors, you know, young actors as well, but in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s. Harrison Ford in his 80s got his first Emmy nomination for Shrinking. So you have, you know, Best Actress in a Drama Series. You do have Kathy Bates, Sharon Horgan for Bad Sisters, Britt Lower for Severance, Bella Ramsey, The Last of Us, Kerry Russell, The Diplomat. Tons of acting nominations for The White Lotus. It kind of, you know, it's a tough thing for, I think that, not a tough thing, but a little bit awkward if you're in The White Lotus and you don't get nominated, because so many other of your cast members did, and it's such an ensemble show. So Walton Goggins and Jason Isaacs and Sam Rockwell and Carrie Coon and Natasha Rothwell and Amy Lee Wood all nominated for the White Lotus. I thought Patrick Schwarzenegger was fantastic and definitely deserved an Emmy nomination. And, Michelle Monaghan and other cast members as well. You even got, best guest actor. You get, that's if you're on just one or two episodes. So Scott Glenn for the White Lotus got a guest actor nomination. On and on it goes with the nominees. The quality, though, even if you look at something like, for example, best supporting actor in a comedy series, you got Ike Barinholtz in The Studio, one of his best roles. Coleman Domingo, who was so good in The Four Seasons, which is not a show people embraced, a series, but he was terrific. Harrison Ford, we mentioned for Shrinking. Jeff Hiller for Somebody Somewhere, a great show that I think it's now gone, right? But a great, great show. Evan Moss Bacharach for The Bear. He's won before. Michael Urie for Shrinking, and Bowen Yang, who's so good on Saturday Night Live. The Emmys, the work is so strong across the board. All these great acting nominations. Kudos to everybody, and congratulations for those who were nominated. It is an honor just to be nominated. Okay, so the new version of I Know What You Did Last Summer, I shouldn't say the new version, the sequel, it's a direct sequel to the late 90s hit, is hitting theaters. We're going to have a review of that in the second half of the podcast. But I wanted to talk about something that comes about every time there's talk about I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I mentioned it earlier this week on Twitter. I rewatched the original, which is really a lot of fun. It kind of leans in. It's kind of in the Scream category of leaning into horror movie tropes and dark humor. Terrific young cast. It's good, really good looking film. Well shot. Of course, the whole fisherman thing is a little ridiculous. They're always a little bit ridiculous, but it plays off of urban legends, right? The hook killer, one of the first urban legends I ever heard. And I think I put it in my first book about urban legends, the one about the couple in the car. And of course, this dates back to the 50s and the 60s. They're listening to the car radio, at Make Out Point or, Get Lucky Hill or whatever the local place is where young couples would, park to make out and fool around and all that stuff. And they're listening to the radio and a bulletin comes on that somebody has escaped. They've usually escaped from the insane asylum for the criminally bent or whatever the hell, Arkham. And they've got a hook and and then the girl hears the guy goes out to investigate, make sure everything's okay. And then the girl hears like someone kind of like swishing, sweeping, scratching noise on the roof. And it's her boyfriend. He's been hanged because the hooked killer conveniently climbed a tree, I guess, and hanged the guy. And car was right under that. Or they peel out of there, the young couple. As soon as they hear the news of the hooked killer in the neighborhood, they peel out of there. Everything is just fine. And then when the guy drops the girl off, and because this is an old-timey urban legend, he gets out of the car to hold the door open for the girl. And there's a hook in the door handle of the car. They just got away. A bloody hook. He lost his bloody hook. Anyway, so the urban legend about I Know What You Did Last Summer is that a kid had won a contest to show up on the film and watch filming for a day. And they do contests once in a while. It's not usually to let someone on the set to watch a film being made because people are working and it's not exactly the experience, but okay, let's say that. And the urban legend was that the kid shows up on the set and they're filming the scene, right after Jennifer Love Hewitt's character of Julie had discovered the body in the trunk with the crabs crawling all over it, right? And then her friends run back with her, and there's nothing in the trunk. Somehow the hooked killer was really good at quickly moving a body and 100 crabs, which are difficult to wrangle. And then she says, what are you waiting for? She twirls around, right? The famous overhead shot.
He's just out there, and he's watching us and waiting. What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
And the urban legend, and Jennifer Love Hewitt in an interview actually said that scene was actually directed by a kid who won a contest to come on and create a moment for the movie, and it became the biggest part of the movie. I have no idea where the kid is, but he was like, I wanted her to stand in the street and turn around and just scream, what are you waiting for? Now, this is Jennifer Love Hewitt. I think I know that this didn't happen. And I don't know if she's confused or she heard the story. And this is a terrific article by Matthew Jacobs in Vulture, in which he goes into the great details. And he reached out to the filmmakers and they're like, that never happened. Kevin Williamson's script actually has that iconic line, "What are you waiting for?" And the idea that a kid would show up on the set and the director would just be, yeah, sure. You know what? This kid, Jim Gillespie, by the way, is the director, who really did a great job on that, and then didn't have much of a career after that. Directed a few small films, but very stylish and clever direction of the original "I Know What You Did Last Summer." But can you imagine the kid shows up and says, "You know what you ought to do? Do an overhead crane shot and have Jen Love Hewitt twirl around, dramatically, and it'll become a oh, good thing we have a crane handy." Filmmaking is a little more complicated than that. You got to block out that stuff. So if you hear that, and a bunch of people kept sending that to me when I mentioned the original movie this week, and I don't want to embarrass people on Twitter, but I just kind of gently say, I think that's not true. I think that's an urban legend. It never really happened. Pretty sure they didn't have a contest for the little known at the time, smaller "I Know What You Did Last Summer." Come see the movie as it's being made. All right, we'll have the review after the break of the new "I Know What You Did Last Summer." And remember, they did the sequel. There was "I Know What You Did Last Summer," which became a surprise hit, made big bucks. And then they quickly rushed out "I Still Know What You Did Last Summer," which really should have been "I Know What You Did 2 Summers Ago." I'm pretty sure. The sequel is one of the worst sequels of all time. It's so bad. Okay, this is also kind of fun. This is another one of these kind of viral things. Not the first time I've seen this, but a friend sent this to me, and it's the most recent version where Leon Ondieki, I hope I got that right, Leon, did a Facebook post. And again, we've seen variations on this, but he's calling out Rose from Titanic. And there's been endless debates, and even James Cameron did the documentary. Remember where they tried to recreate the whole board thing? And could Rose really make room for Jack? Would they survive? And it's pretty fascinating documentary. But here's what the post says. I kind of love this. Maturity is realizing that in the film Titanic, Rose decides to throw away a $250 million pendant in memory of an unemployed man she slept with exactly once, a man who never even owned the necklace. She completely disregards the fact that the explorer who brought her to the wreck had built his entire career about finding that necklace, yet she just held on to it, didn't tell anybody, and then chucked it into the ocean for no good reason and croaks in the bed. We think she died. There's debate whether or not, but we think so. Now, the other thing is, all those years when Rose and we see the photos and everything because Rose's granddaughter is taking care of her, right? Played by Susie Amis. She could have, if she hung on to that stupid pendant, which was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And we know that the scoundrel fiance boyfriend, played by Billy Zane, we're told that he offed himself, right? When the stock market crashed a few, 15 years later or whatever. So she's got it. No one's going to say she did anything illegally. It was hers. It was a gift, right? And she let her husband, I guess, and her kids just struggle through life without ever saying, oh, by the way, we could be set for generations. Rude. Selfish. Good stuff. Michael Jordan's house, quick segue. His former house is now an Airbnb. Did you see this story? You can now rent out Michael Jordan's home. This is the big estate, north suburbs of Chicago. You've probably seen photos because it had the big 23 on the gate. It was very private, but he still had the big 23. And I love Michael. He was always like that. I used to see him sometimes downtown. He had various cars. This is way back. Probably the first time I saw him was in the late 80s, early 90s before even all the championships. And one time I saw him gassing up at the station near my house while I was gassing up, and he had a blue Corvette with actually North Carolina plates, and I think it was Air 23 or MJ Air 23, so he liked the vanity stuff. But anyway, the house sat there forever, this big giant albatross, and they kept dropping the price, and it finally sold. And now the new owners are making it an Airbnb, and you can rent it out for a week for like $1 zillion. And it's really cool. There's a basketball court. Michael's home basketball court is nicer than a lot of high school gyms basketball courts, and all kinds of other amenities. But I don't know, man. Are people really gonna want to rent out Michael Jordan's former house that he spent some time in way back in the day? Is that a hook? A 7-night stay. I'm looking this up as we speak, folks. So let's see. Hold on here. 7-night stay, $120,000 for a week, and you can have it for a month for $230,000. I mean, I guess if you're super, super crazy rich, you could do some sort of bachelor dude week or something, or couples retreat at the Michael Jordan house. We've had a couple other famous homes become Airbnbs. Now, they did this with the Home Alone house, the McAllister house, which is also up on North Shore of Chicago, Winnetka. And this was a one night only thing during the holidays. They had a special Airbnb event for up to 4 guests. And it was more like a raffle kind of thing. I think you bought tickets for $25 or something, and then some lucky person. That's kind of fun. Although, as we've talked about before, the exterior was used for a few shots. I think they might have done a couple of quick interior entrance shots, but the whole home was built on a soundstage, and even the backyard, as they often do with movies. But it is cool because it still looks a lot like the McAllister house from 1990, the Home Alone, beautiful home. I know you can stay at the Stranger Things, the Byers house. That's in Georgia, even though I think it's set in Indiana, right? But the house itself is in Georgia. Bella Swan's house in Oregon is an Airbnb. Tony Stark's cabin from Avengers Endgame. That's kind of fun because it's an actual, I guess it's a working cabin. It's a real cabin, right? You can stay there. And I know that recently the Buffalo Bill house from the Silence of the Lambs, you can stay there. And I think they got a lot of memorabilia, and they kind of tricked it up to look even more like the house, the real house where Buffalo Bill was staying. So you could stay there. I don't want to. I don't want to do any of those. I don't know. I see no appeal in that. But I know. Listen, people go to homes and they take pictures, and a lot of times it's just the exterior. Ferris Bueller's house was supposedly, of course, here in Chicago, but it was really the exteriors in California. It's fun. It's fun if you want to do it. I'm still waiting for the Shameless house in Chicago, a real house, to become an Airbnb. Maybe I'll stay there. They had a lot of fun there. All right, let's take a break. Let's talk about Portillo's, which recently, by the way, teamed up with Lou Malnati's, another Chicago institution, and they have a hot dog pizza, which I'll be trying just because you have to try things like that in Chicago. But we'll talk about the wonders of Portillo's, and then we will tell you about the new I Know What You Did Last Summer movie and other stuff right after the break. All right, let's talk a little bit about Portillo's. They're known, of course, for their famous Chicago hot dogs with all the freshest and tastiest ingredients, right down to that famous poppy seed bun. Then we have to talk about the legendary chocolate cake. And everybody knows if you've ever been to Portillo's, but if you don't, you never put the cake in the fridge. You have to have it at room temperature. That's how it's delivered to you or handed to you in the restaurant. That's the way you have to taste it. And of course, the menu has everything from the charbroiled burger to Italian beef to some really good chopped salads. But that chocolate cake, I'm telling you. Now, there are locations throughout the Midwest and in Florida, California, and Arizona. But you can also ship Portillo's anywhere in the United States of America by ordering at portillos.com. That's PORTILLOS.com. PORTILLOS.com.
Oh my God. I'm calling 911.
Everyone, chill out! We don't tell anybody what happened tonight.
We should go. What does it say? What if someone saw us?
Outside of us, no one knows what happened, right?
Someone is clearly coming after us.
I need to start drinking. Whoever's doing this, it's personal to them. What are you waiting for?
Okay, let's talk about I Know What You Did Last Summer, the 2025 version, a direct sequel to the big hit. It was a big hit back in the day. Now this one is set in present day, and you have a new group of kind of spoiled friends, and they're in that Southport. It's in North. I think it's supposed to be in North Carolina, right? I think they film most of this thing in Australia and LA, but that's again the magic, so to speak, of movies. So anyway, the town of Southport has pretty much wiped the memories of the massacre from the late 90s. They've just wiped it off the map. Nobody talks about it. It's just verboten, and they've kind of turned it into a a Hamptons-like resort. They rip off a lot of the plot of Jaws here. You got the businessman basically playing the part of the mayor who just wants to make sure the tourists are happy during summer. It's the 4th of July, for crying out loud. So they just want to keep the tourists happy and everybody flocking in and not talk about this. But then you have this new group of 5 friends, played by a nice, attractive young cast. They're all fine. Madeline Klein, Chase Sweet Wonders, Jonah Howard-King, Tariq Withers, and Sarah Pidgeon are your 5 young actors, all very talented, all destined to have fine careers. Some of them already have fine careers, and good for them, but they're stuck in just a horrible, dopey, slimy even script that actually one of the things I really disliked about this film is how it basically pisses on the legacy of the original. And I'm not going to say any more than that, but it does. So the 5 young, attractive people, they're out on the road and they're a bunch of hijinks and the car goes over the cliff and now there's somebody who's dead, but are they really dead? And then the notes start coming. I know what you did last summer. So then as they try to figure out how to identify this hook-wielding fisherman who's going after them, they're going to go seek help from the 2 survivors of the original Southport massacre, Julie James, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt, and Ray Bronson, played by Freddie Prinze Jr. Yes, they're in the movie. We've seen him in the posters, no surprise. Ryan Phillippe and Sarah Michelle Gellar can't be in it because they were killed in the original, right? So it's nice to see Freddie and Jen back, and they're terrific. But where they put those characters and what they're up to, I didn't think was very imaginative, and in some cases really disappointing. This is a poorly made film. It just looks bad. Editing, great editing, and sometimes you notice editing because it's supposed to be flashy and it's supposed to be complex, and that's why a lot of really complex and richly layered films win for best editing. But a lot of times editing is sort of like umpiring or refereeing. You shouldn't really notice it, just like you really shouldn't notice too much of what's going on with sound design. It's just sort of the immersive experience. But when you notice the editing in a film like this, it's because it's so bad. It's so choppy and clunky and never finds the right pace. Couple of creative kill scenes, designed to make you go, oh, that's gross, while you're laughing. It's also, the script is also one of those kind of all too, clever, or at least they think, where it's making a lot of pop culture references, which are going to be dated in about a year. And people are going to go, what were they even talking about there? I think that's always a danger with films like this. If you get too of the moment and you try to be very, 21st century. So of course there's a character who's a podcaster who does a murder-based podcast. And we've seen that before in horror films. That's nothing new. That's nothing here is new. They kind of repeat the original, which is just ridiculous. It's just it's one of the worst movies of the year. I know what you did last summer. I know what you didn't do last summer. You didn't come up with a good script. How about that? Now, on the other side of things, talking about a crime series, and this one is not. I know what you did last summer is in theaters, of course. Untamed on Netflix is a limited series, and it's self-contained. I don't think there's any plans for a season 2. You can always have a season 2, but it's a self-contained story. It's a 6-episode thriller. We like it a lot of times when the limited series don't stretch beyond their means, that the natural progression of the story. So Eric Bana, who's a terrific actor, always good. He plays Kyle Turner, and he's an agent with the Park Service in Yosemite, kind of an agent whose purpose there is not the usual wildlife ranger thing, which is, making sure the idiot people don't go in the wrong spots and protecting the wildlife and, serving as a guide and all that kind of stuff. He's there if there are actual crimes, and it's it's a huge area. So sometimes, unfortunately, crimes occur. So there's a brutal death in Yosemite, and then the Eric Bana character of Kyle Turner starts to investigate this. And now there are dark secrets. They're always dark. They're never light secrets. They have to be dark secrets, and there are also dark secrets from his past. He's haunted by his past because all these guys, these anti-heroes, are haunted by their past.
I'm looking at this girl that went off El Capitan.
Another tourist got too close to the edge.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. There's no animal tracks near the top of the trail. Whatever she was running from, she was running for a while. Do these mean anything to you?
Keep evil spirits away.
Evil spirits?
Evil anything.
45 caliber?
Execution style.
I think the killings are connected. If you're in this somehow, I'm gonna find out.
really well done. The twists and turns at times, not the most believable, I guess, where you're like, there are some gaps where you're like, I just said I like that it was 6 parts, but there are actually sometimes you're like, they probably could have filled this in a little bit more, but really well done. Sam Neill, another welcome presence. He plays Kyle's boss and mentor who stuck with him through the hard times. Rosemary DeWitt, who I always love, and Lily Santiago rounding out the cast. Terrific cast, great work. Cool looking show too. We talk about the visuals and, you know, the idea that's out in the great, beautiful wilderness, but then dark things happen even in paradise. So it's Untamed on Netflix. Check it out. Do not go and find out what they did last summer because you will be disappointed. Don't blame me. I warned you. We will talk again soon. Thanks for listening, guys.